And that means it's time for our buddy, the associate editor of Newsbusters.org, the great Noel Sheppard. Hello, Noel.
Hello, Steve.
How are you?
All right. How are you, sir?
Good. We're a week removed from the lesbian story by David Letterman. I mean, I can't believe it's a week.
By the way, we can talk about it again if you like.
No, that's okay. That's okay. But I just thought I'd bring it up so it would rekindle whatever it would rekindle. Anyway, all right. Let's get serious here and let's talk about the week that has been the scandals one after the other. And one of the stories you wrote quotes Mitch McConnell, the minority leader of the Senate, basically saying if this were a Republican administration, having, with the IRS scandal and the AP, Justice Department AP records being seized. And by the way, Holder also said he's done this before and he just doesn't even know how many times. So maybe your records, maybe my records have also been pulled by the government. If this were a Republican administration, I mean, they'd be starting impeachment proceedings at the behest of the media.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, we have to give the media some credit here. I mean, there actually have been folks like, for example, even Chris Matthews, Jon Stewart has been totally excoriating the president show after show this week for these scandals. So what I think has been interesting here is we have seen some media criticism of Obama from unlikely sources, again, including Chris Matthews. Rachel Maddow last night actually went after Obama for the AP scandal. So I think that what's occurring here is we've kind of had that last straw. I mean, the media now for, let's call it 6 years since Obama first threw his name into the ring in February of 2007, have been carrying his water. So that's a good six and a quarter years. They've been carrying his water, and they've been defending him in every turn. And I think that what's occurred here is for some of them, I think that the Benghazi story, the fact that they felt that they were being lied to, and then you throw in this IRS thing and they know. I mean, people on both sides of the aisle and conservative and liberal media know this IRS story, it upsets people across the country. This is not a liberal versus conservative anger. This is liberals and conservatives angry about the thought of an administration using the IRS to intimidate people. So I think that what we've got here is we've just gotten to the point where they're not necessarily willing to defend anymore, but they're not all on the attack, and what as much as they should be. And I think that what McConnell was telling the media, he said that to a group of reporters at a Senate leadership after a Senate leadership luncheon. I think his point was, when you go back and you start reporting, particularly on the IRS, how would your report look if this was a Republican president?
Right.
And I think that even with the people that are, let's say, doing some fairer reporting, I'm not sure that the anger is at the level that it should be. I think it's going to depend upon what more comes out. I mean, if this really does, I mean, we just found out that the IRS, the IG that was on Capitol Hill in a congressional testimony just said that he first reported this last June. Wow. So now we know that the administration was aware of this going back to 5 months before Election Day and decided not to say anything for almost another year. Wow, that's scary stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, the president yesterday, basically skidded around a question of when he knew, and he said, I was not aware of the IG report until you all heard about it in the news. But he did not, and the question asked to him was, when did you know about, what was going on with the IRS? Now, we've heard about these accusations for years. It seems inconceivable that he had no idea, but, he didn't answer that yesterday, and that's going to be very, very telling if he ever does have to answer that. I do want to hear along the lines of what you were saying. This will be cut 36, Will. This is Willie Geist and I guess it's Joe Scarborough actually talking about tyranny with regard to the scandal. And here's cut 36.
One other point to make, there's been many overblown claims of tyranny and abuse of power from the government over the last few years.
Right.
We've heard those when it comes to we're coming for your guns, that kind of thing.
Sure.
This is tyranny.
This is.
If this is the government, a nonpartisan agency coming after specific groups, this time it's real. That's tyranny.
I'll just be honest with you, I can't imagine much, Mark Halpern, worse than this.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty strong. They did some of them backtracked on that show, I think, this morning or after that. But this is strong language.
It was strong language, especially because what they were doing here, to a certain extent, was vindicating the Tea Party folks and vindicating Second Amendment folks who have been talking. I mean, not completely vindicating, but bringing them up anyway, or referring to them. You know, people have been saying for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months now since Sandy Hook, that stronger gun laws, all they do is give the government greater authority and greater control to potentially to commit acts of tyranny. And for Willie Geist, not as shocking that Scarborough would agree with him, but for Willie Geist to come out and say, you know, this, and he said it twice, this is tyranny. He's 100% right. This is tyranny, and it's very scary. And again, this is when you've got people on MSNBC talking this way, even Joe Scarborough and Willie Geist, the administration is in a lot of trouble on this one. And the media, I think they smell blood in the water at this point. And you know, something that we need to address here. It's 2013, so there is no election this year. We're not in a campaign mode yet.
Right.
So the media can actually be far more aggressive this year on Obama and the administration and Democrats than conceivably they've been, well, maybe since 2011.
Right.
Excuse me, 2011. Maybe since 2007.
Yeah, no,
it's been a long time since the media have been in a position where they can actually go after Democrats and go after a Democrat president without there being any real immediate political electoral consequence. So what we might be seeing here is they want to get as much out now, and the media want to actually behave as much like, I mean, for the first time again since conceivably 2006 maybe, or 2007, or early 2007, they want to look conceivably as fair and balanced as they've been in a long time, because they know once January rolls around and we start talking about midterm elections, they're not going to be able to do this.
Right. We're talking to Noel Sheppard of newsbusters.org here on the Steve Malzberg Show. And, yeah, of course, some people like Chuck Todd have already started saying that if the Republicans overreach, they'll be punished the way they were after 1998.
No, and that's a good point. And that's a good point, Steve, because now where we are, because it is Friday, and happy Friday, by the way. We'll talk about lesbians later. But it is Friday now, so we're a full week from the IRS revelations, and 5-6 days from the AP revelations, and already what we're starting to get, and I think it's very interesting, is a universal discussion in the media of the Republicans better be careful to not push this too far,
right?
Because they may overplay their hand, and they tried this with the Monica Lewinsky affair. No pun intended, and that didn't work well for them in that midterm election. So I think what we've got here is we're seeing the cycle now. We're seeing it shift. We saw them attack a little bit or criticize the administration, over the weekend and on Monday and on Tuesday. Now on Friday and yesterday, we're beginning to start hearing the Republicans better not go too far, or this is going to hurt them.
Right, and of course
that's what we're going to see unless we get more revelations that this really does go right to the top and the administration really did know and this came right from them. I think that's going to start being the pushback here. Republicans better be careful.
I agree. And, of course, I think the analogy is ridiculous, especially coming with someone who's called White House correspondent who should have a knowledge of history at least, even if he wasn't around back then. I mean, comparing as much as I thought it was legitimate to impeach Bill Clinton because it wasn't about sex, it was about lying under oath, perjury, the whole thing. But still, half the public felt it was his sex life. It's nobody's business. The public doesn't feel that way about the IRS or the media getting their records taken. So there's no analogy to be made there.
No, there really isn't, and I think you just raised a great point. I mean, a president having an affair in the Oval Office, there's a percentage of the population that says, so what? Okay, big deal. Why are they impeaching him over this? This is a waste of our time. Especially, remember, the economy was doing well and people were really not in, there was a percentage of the population not interested in this. But this is the IRS. There's 53% of the population that actually pays taxes. They're worried about this. Of course, that brings up, what are the other 47%? I mean, is it conceivable that there's a percentage of the population, since they don't pay taxes, they're going, who cares?
I don't know.
They'll never come after me.
But there was a Rasmussen poll that came out the other day, and it was something like, it was either 53 or 57% said that they want to see somebody, suffer the consequences from this scandal. So we'll see. But I want to get to Dan Rather, who had his take on this. Again, another piece that you wrote at newsbusters.org. This will be 28, Will. Let's play 28.
Well, we're in the early stages, so it's a little early to start making a comparison.
Okay.
Those who compare it to Watergate, the Republicans are always eager to jump on almost anything and say, well, it's like Watergate. We're not anywhere in the same cosmos as that. Because keep in mind, with Watergate, while using the Internal Revenue Service to punish one's opponents, came directly from the president himself. That's a fact.
Right.
Now, in this case, we don't even know whether the president was aware that this was happening. But this is advantage Republican. The Republicans must be slapping high five behind closed doors because...
Yeah, slapping high five, baby.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that he said that. I mean, look, to a certain extent, I mean, do we disagree that right now, and behind closed doors, you have to figure that Mitch McConnell and John Boehner and their underlings, their lieutenants, are, well, no one's pleased about a scandal.
No,
like
but they were handed a gift, a political gift. No one's glad that people were targeted by the IRS, but it is a political loser for the administration and Democrats, and a political winner for anybody who opposes it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs going on right now. So if we put this in a in a sports perspective, right now, heading into the midterms, suddenly the GOP looks up 3-love in a seven-game series, and playing at home. They took the first 2 on the road. They're coming back for game 4 to sweep. To their home. So, but it's still interesting to see Dan Rather say that, because I mean, clearly he came out and he said, this isn't Watergate yet, but this is pretty darn serious.
Yep.
When again, I mean, this is another one of those far left media folks who are at least being somewhat honest about, hey, this is a very serious scandal.
Right, and I don't think he was saying that it in a negative fashion towards Republicans. I think if it were the other way around, he probably says that because he knows Democrats would be high-fiving if it was a Republican administration.
That's right.
So I don't think it was a negative. But let's listen to David Letterman. No lesbian jokes this time around, but cut 21. Cut 21, Will. Here we go.
Have you folks been paying attention to what's going on in Washington? Neither have I.
Oh.
It's crazy. In a matter of like 6 weeks, 3 big scandals, and it looks like President Obama and all his buddies in the White House may go to prison. Finally, some good news for the Romney campaign. Yes. It's about time.
So worth it.
People always say this to me. They say, hey, Letterman, they say, why don't you make jokes about Obama? And I say, all right, I'll tell you why. Good question. And, oh, you want to know why? Okay. I don't make jokes about it because I don't want the FBI tapping my phone. Tapping my phone. That's why.
I mean, look, I can't stand David Letterman over his politics, but I got to tell you, he's a comedian, I know, but there was a message there, I think, in his own way.
Oh, there's no question. And I mean, I think it was very interesting that he would admit that people come up to him and say, why don't you make jokes about Obama? Because at Newsbusters, we've been talking about how, with the exception of Jay Leno, comedians have not wanted to make jokes about this president. Finally, we're getting Jon Stewart is beginning to do it too. But what this shows you is, A, he's kind of admitting that he doesn't want to make jokes about Obama or hasn't in the past. But now he's willing to, and it shows you that even David Letterman, and David Letterman is part of the 53% of Americans
Right,
that
who pays taxes, yeah.
He makes like $25 million a year or whatever the. He makes a lot of money. He pays a lot of taxes. He doesn't want him to be a target of a Republican president down the road.
I tell you what, Noel, we're going to leave it there because I'm up against a hard break. But folks could read. That's your story at newsbusters.org. Folks should check it out. Have a great weekend, my friend. We thank you for your time as always.
Sounds good. Talk to you next week.
All right, Noel Sheppard.